Hello, friends. Today I want to offer a few remarks on Jeremiah chapter 21 through chapter 22 and verse 19. And you may know that in this particular section, Jeremiah is renouncing certain kings like Zedekiah and Jehoahaz and Jehoiakim. Would you permit me a very short history lesson? I'll try not to make it too dry, but you history buffs out there might appreciate this. I want to put these readings in their context. Zedekiah is the last of the Judean kings. In 589 or 588 BC, Zedekiah showed signs of rebellion against the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar. He was encouraged by the promise of Egyptian help and by his nobles, but of course that was a big mistake, because soon thereafter Nebuchadnezzar came down from the north, laid siege to Jerusalem, and the city fell in 587 BC. Of course, this means that our readings in these chapters are out of their chronological order, because you may know that the kings of Judah go from Josiah to Jehoahaz to Jehoiakim to Jehoiakim and then to Zedekiah. Chapter 21 opens with Zedekiah asking for Jeremiah's help. Inquire of the Lord for me. We've got to save Jerusalem. Nebuchadnezzar has laid siege to our city. And you know that the Lord's answer destroyed all hope. Jerusalem's doom was sealed because of their unrepentant heart. But God did give the people a choice, didn't he, in verses 8 and 9? To choose life or to choose death. They could surrender and their lives would be saved. But if they stayed in Jerusalem and refused to surrender, they would be killed. And then in this section we have the duties of a king. The duties of a king were to administer justice, to be righteous, to administer fair dealing. The king was the guardian of justice, and this was especially true against the oppressors of the defenseless and the helpless, like the foreigner, the orphan, and the widow. Chapter 22 and verse 10 tells us that we're not to weep for a certain king. That would be King Josiah, who died on the field of battle in Megiddo, 609, in case you wanted to know that. And then Jeremiah says, rather you ought to weep for someone else who has gone away. That would be Josiah's son, Jehoahaz. Shalom is his personal name. And he tells us that this king will be taken away and he'll never return to his native land. And then beginning in verse 13 of chapter 22, Jeremiah renounces Jehoiakim. By the way, Jeremiah condemns this particular king more than any other king in his writings. And I like verse 16, where in this section Jeremiah is contrasting Josiah and Jehoiakim. But let me read this verse for you. Verse 16. He, this is referring to Josiah, he judged the cause of the poor and needy. Then it was well. Is not this to know me, says the Lord? And you know in this context that Jeremiah is saying, your father defended the poor. He defended those who were oppressed. And he ate and drank, and it was all right with him. He had a good life. But you, on the other hand, you are so self-absorbed, you are so self-centered, you don't care one whit for those who are defenseless. You don't stand up for justice and for righteousness, and because of that, you're going to fall. But I like that passage. Is this not what it means to know me, says the Lord? Knowing God means treating people right, administering justice, dealing with people fairly. And by the way, there's our application for this particular text. We can't say that we love God if we hate our brother, right? I think that's 1 John chapter 4, maybe chapter 3. But in those two chapters in 1 John, the Apostle John shows us that loving God involves loving people. I mean, we can't say that we hate people and we love God. So to know God, even today, years after Jeremiah wrote these words, even today, knowing God means that we treat people right. that we treat them fairly, that we insist upon justice. May it be so in our families, in our churches, in our country. Now for a preview of what we're going to read. More renunciation of the kings, but Jeremiah is going to add a renunciation of the prophets. Good stuff. Talk with you later.